I'm really proud of what we've accomplished so far in pursuing my desert forest dream. We're clearly gaining momentum and seeing modest successes, even though the rain keeps missing me. The monsoon rains in West Texas are notoriously spotty. Many of my neighbors, some of them here in Red Light Draw, have gotten several days of heavy rain. My friend and neighbor Bill over in Sierra Blanca was overjoyed, sending me a video of rain falling at a 45-degree angle. Meanwhile, Brandon and I are out here baking in the sun, looking at all these storm clouds give rain to everybody except us. I could sit here and feel sorry for myself, or I can get busy controlling the things that I can actually control. And what we can control is getting more mulch on the ground to grab the water whenever it shows up. A key part of this process has been spreading mulch in neat lines to protect the plants from the sun and from the wind. What hasn't been going great is the exorbitant cost to get to this point. Paying for mulch and hauling it from El Paso costs $135 per yard for the material and fuel. Texas Highways did a profile of me back in April, and when the reporter came out to the ranch, he told me, "Before I came here, I really thought your most isolated spot in the state of Texas claim was just some kind of marketing gimmick, but nope, I really believe you might actually be in the most isolated spot in Texas." Time is money, and now that Brandon works on the ranch full time, that is literally true for me. Every day he's here, he deserves to get paid. So whether he's able to gather 1 cubic yard of mulch or 10 cubic yards of mulch in a day, he gets paid the same amount, and he deserves it. Brandon's holding up his end of the bargain. It's my job to fix the value side of the equation. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to figure all of this out. I have a lot of eyeballs thinking about these problems with me, and Daniel in particular spends a lot of time out on the Dust Ups Ranch. And as the guy who hauled out the first load of soil that I bought with the amendments, he knows very well how expensive it is to ship that material out here.
And I was looking, I was like, there's a brush pile, and another one, and another one, and another. Holy crap, I need to film this for Sean. Thought it'd be a good opportunity.
Finding free stuff is not the problem. Finding free stuff that doesn't cost a fortune to ship is the problem.
48.1 gallons of fuel.
No way. You have to pay the fuel bill to bring out whatever it is you want out here. Every pound of cargo adds to the fuel bill. You really wanted to tell me something, and I really wanted to sit in the AC. So this is a great time to have a conversation, because
Yes.
It's 105 probably going to be today.
Yeah, I think 105, 106. I know it was 106 when we showed up yesterday.
Yeah.
Or we talked about the brush piles that construction companies leave.
Yeah, in El Paso.
And El Paso. And it just so happened as I was coming here, I noticed off to the right, there's like 8 or 10 brush piles sitting on the side of the road right by the Sierra Blanca exit. It goes from the border checkpoint to the first Sierra Blanca exit. It's just pile after pile after
Really?
pile. And it's a lot of brush. If we can get it, that's a lot of organic material that is just sitting right there a few miles away. West Texas, few miles.
Yeah, exactly. A 40-mile drive to go get it. But
Right.
I mean, I don't think anybody would say anything if we just pulled up and started pulling the brush, but I wonder who I should talk to.
They are still working there. I mean,
Okay. Let me call the sheriff and see if we can pick up that brush pile, especially before it gets hauled off. That would break my heart. If we can, it might make sense to have Brandon go get a chipper.
the smaller particles of that, it would be more efficient. We don't have to worry about stepping on anything. Just want to go through our feet.
Cool. Of course the line's busy. It's a small county. It's now been more than an hour, so I'm going to try this again. I don't know. It's Saturday. I'm just going to have to call on Monday, I think. Oh, my word. The county that doesn't have working phones. Literally calling every number in the county. Hey, is this Abel Ramirez? I noticed a bunch of cleared land with waste piles. I'm interested in taking all that material as mulch for my ranch. Am I going to cause any issue if I just go get it?
Yeah, all that stuff belongs to TxDOT.
So I just need to call their office and ask,
Hey, I don't know what they do with it. I know they cleaned out all that area and they started hauling, I guess, a bunch of freaking mesquite and whatever else they have hauled out there.
All right, that's great. I appreciate you. You put me on the hunt.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Awesome. So TxDOT Van Horn. For those of you that think this is mostly a manual labor job, building a desert forest, I spend probably 2/3 of my time like planning and organizing and figuring things out. Fuel is the reason I was so excited that Daniel spotted all of this mulch. If I only have to drive to Sierra Blanca to get the materials, and not El Paso, it cuts the total distance, the time, the fuel bill, the labor cost for Brandon by 2/3. This is going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm stopping in the office and I'm just going to ask because I'm not going to get anywhere on the phone. That's just not how this place works. Good news. TxDOT was totally cool. They can't load me with the equipment. I knew they were going to have to say no. It was worth asking anyway, but they're all in favor of me taking all the brush I want. So I'm going to text Brandon now, and Brandon now has a job with the dump trailer. I had a mishap with the footage, so unfortunately I don't have anything to show you for this part. But it consists of Brandon loading the dump trailer full of all of this piled mesquite and agave and yucca 3 times. The overwhelming comment from the previous episode was, Sean, you need to buy a chipper. Just to kick the tires, because it was such a minor expense, I decided to try one of the ultra cheap chippers, thinking, well, maybe it'll at least be able to go through some of the yucca and the agave that's all dried out. And that didn't work. That was a waste of time, but I checked that off the list and now we're moving on. If I'm going to buy a mulcher, I need something that would be capable of doing 5 cubic yards an hour. My experience a year and a half into this is, when it comes to major purchases, procrastination is my best friend. Last year, I started working on a sandbag cabin, and I was absolutely convinced that that was a smart use of time. And to help me run as quote unquote efficiently as possible, I bought an attachment for a skid steer that can load up to 3,000 sandbags per day. I bought a gravel screen. I bought several thousand sandbags, and all that money is wasted. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to build, and as I started actually building the cabin with sandbags, I understood from the experience that this project has to run on a tight schedule. Sandbags cannot sit in the UV. I dramatically overestimated how efficiently I would work stacking the sandbags and laying them straight and plumb on the wall. Because if you don't get the sandbags covered with agave or stucco or cement, whatever you're using, they're going to be structurally useless in 6 months. Had I procrastinated, I probably would have stuck around long enough to see something like the drill rig doghouses that I wound up purchasing at auction. It solved my shelter need. It's a long-term solution that actually works and is dirt cheap. Certainly not the house of my dreams, but it works. Now that shelter is not an overriding concern, I can now focus on the agricultural parts, which I've been doing for the last 6 months. But every time I head over to the terrace, I have to drive by my old skid steer attachment that I never use, and I just look at that as a pile of money that I wasted. If I sell it, I'm probably going to take a big loss, which, by the way, if you want to buy a skid steer attachment that has been used for 8 hours, contact me. When you're out here, if you need a tool, it's going to be really expensive, and you need to be really certain that you actually need the tool. The bulldozer, I was really confident I would benefit enormously from having a bulldozer. I have no regrets about buying that thing. I use it constantly. But is a chipper really the right tool? Chris in Western Australia sent me an underappreciated video where a gardener decided to test how well different mulches retain moisture. And as I evaluate my options, before I fully dive into committing to wood chips, I want to make sure that I'm going to focus on the mulch that gives me the most impact. If you're interested in gardening or doing permaculture yourself, I do recommend watching that video. The summary is grass is the best mulch. Straws are pretty close second. There's a couple other materials, and wood chips are certainly better than bare soil, but they're not amazing at holding on to moisture, which leaves me thinking, I really need to test which mulch combinations I'm going to use before I dive into it head first. So for now, without using a chipper, this material that we picked up from TxDOT is costing me about $100 a yard, including the fuel and the labor. Now, if I decide to focus really on hauling in mulch from other areas, then I might be able to get that cost down to around 20 bucks a yard if I have the right truck and the right chipper. But I want to be absolutely certain before I even consider making a purchase like that. The experience of finding this pile from TxDOT inspired me to start looking for more, so I put out a post on Facebook in our local community page to see if I could find anything that I hadn't thought of before. My friend Bob Kinford suggested that Brandon and I come by his stables and we grab some of the horse manure that's been piling up for years. You don't have a spare on the trailer? Do you want to grab it?
Where's it?
It's up by the doghouse. Maybe we can drive to Daniel's truck and just bring it to you. Even tarped this tire looks like it lives in the desert.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, dude. I sincerely hope that that was just an annoyance and that you don't need it. Safe travels. So far, the only issue I've had with the dump trailer is a broken weld on the spare tire mount. They just didn't weld it in the first place, so we got to get that fixed. Randy! What an entry. That Tacoma is a tank.
It is.
Dude.
Performant.
Yeah, I know. Like, everybody gives me a hard time about that thing. It's just pulling like a beast. It's reliable. Whoa. That's pretty full, man. Dude, that is some good looking stuff. I'll meet you on the other side. One of the key lessons that I learned from building the first terrace was the need for delivering all of the soil amendments and all of the mulch as close to where it's needed as possible. I understood it as a concept before, but now I really, really understand it because I had to carry hundreds and hundreds of pounds, if not thousands of pounds of mulch up and down the terrace to get it where it needed to be. As I was building the upper terraces, I had access in mind for a trailer, but it's always different. And when you're up high on the dozer, it's a big machine, and it looks like, oh, I'm squeezing in here fine. Surely a truck and trailer will back in fine.
What's primary spot? Where do you really want it?
There's a huge granite boulder on that terrace right there that I really need to get some kind of, I don't know what you call it, an epoxy or a compound that'll split rocks where you don't need explosives.
Okay.
I tried moving it with that dozer, and it just like, I drive into a brick wall. 76 horsepower, just go.
Why don't we just use explosives? That would be more fun.
I think that's of dubious legality without certain permits and training.
What about, I don't know, I didn't pay attention in the Army, but what if we drill a hole in it, fill it full of tannerite or black powder or something, and shoot it?
It's probably legal, actually. That's pretty ghetto. Like, I don't want to have bullets ricocheting off granite going God knows where.
Just get well back and cover up. You have to be far away from it anyway.
Fair enough. You know, when I was digging the dirt bathtubs, that was the overwhelming recommendation. Why don't you just do this with explosives? Like, I mean, I think people are actually serious when they're suggesting it, but like,
I mean, maybe that's the best way to do it.
Mike Spicer, another super volunteer, is really intent on getting me to blow stuff up. But instead of just cheerleading an idea, he's also putting in some of the legwork because I had no idea how I might even pursue explosives. Apparently, as a red-blooded American, one can apply for a permit from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I don't think explosives are going to be the most cost-effective or the most efficient way to go about things, but maybe I'll kick the tires in my spare time and we'll see if that route leads to anything I might be able to pull off. And as I say this, I'm thinking about all the viewers in Europe and Australia, and I know how the idea of an untrained civilian applying to the government for an explosive permit is going to blow over. But to them, I say, America. So, like, let's walk up to the upper terrace. I think it's the most realistic, but you tell me.
So do you want me to dump this material over here?
Yeah, like if we can take the manure, literally back it up all the way to the very edge, or not almost to the edge, but like pretty close to the end.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal, man. The truck might drive in like this just to get the trailer lined up. It's got to make this really awkward turn, get around this wall all the way to the end, and dump that beautiful manure. Just be really careful. You got a big prickly pear by the right rear tire.
I know. I just said I was planning on running over it off camera. That's why we got the 10-ply tires on.
Oh my gosh. The brand new $1,500 10-ply tires.
Yeah, why not use them?
Oh man, I'm gonna cry.
Well, I don't hear any hissing, do you?
Oh my god. It worked, but let's not repeat that. Oh, hang on. You're looking good.
Just gotta make sure there's a lot I can't see from the
With that giant trailer? Why not?
this huge giant boulder.
Oh man, holy cow. I didn't do a good enough job on the accessibility. I had to compromise on where to put the dump at the beginning of the terrace, knowing that I'd be able to use the dozer to push that pile and have the material spread relatively evenly over the surface. It's going to get where it's needed mechanically, but the next time we come out here with a load, I have to have the accessibility issue fixed. Just, oh, stop. You're about to go over some agave and the tires aren't going to do that. I just don't want to push it. I feel like I'm just inviting disaster and I don't have anything to recover. Like I'm down a Suburban and I'm down a Dozer. I'm happy here. Let's dump.
There's a lot. I'm not- Here comes.
One thing I really like about this horse manure that Brandon picked up from Bob is it's also full of straw. Straw is just amazing at moisture retention, and I need every bit of it. One of the things I've learned from running the drip irrigation system on the bottom terrace is it's very difficult to get water to stick around in sand. For the water that is there, the mulch does a great job of helping it stay longer. But if there's more material like the biochar, then the rate at which that water flows through the soil drops dramatically. All right, material's clear. The horse manure is a dramatic improvement on the cost because I was able to pick it up in Van Horn. The material was free, and the total cost to deliver it to the terrace was $35 a yard, including fuel and labor. We got it pretty close, and the reason I was comfortable dumping it where we did is that I have that bulldozer. And the way you spread material with a bulldozer is you start with a pile, and you keep the blade just ever so slightly off the ground, and you drive straight. So I know that manure is not going to go to waste and placed in a spot where it's beneficial. Bob only has so much horse manure to give away, but this is an example of what I'm talking about when I'm looking for soil amendments and mulches to use. The all-in cost to get it out here really needs to be under $30 a yard before it's going to be worth my time and effort to put the wear and tear on my equipment. Whatever material we picked up needs to exist in enough of a quantity that bringing a dump trailer makes sense. I need a lot of it. I'd love to arrive at a permanent solution where I could coordinate with a dairy or a giant horse farm to have a constant supply. And I think we might be pretty close if horse manure is something that I really want to dive into. For now, we have to keep hustling for opportunities, whether it's finding piles of mulch or finding people that have enough manure that we can haul it with my equipment that I own today and have it still make sense in terms of the cost. We're getting there. We're getting better. I hope this represents everything I'm striving for, which is let's get a little better every day. The episode doesn't have to stop here. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description, and you're going to watch bonus Dust Ups content that is not available on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you over in that bonus episode.